Shai, you are now the youngest team in the history of the NBA to win a second-round game. How do you guys continue to do this?
Yeah, we don't worry about all the statistics and the stats and how young we are. There's certain ways you win basketball games at a high level, and that's what we focus on. We try to get them done every night, and tonight we did so.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Price Check Sports Podcast, brought to you by the In the Zone Network, where we go city to city, state to state, worldwide. Of course, got to tap back into the world of the NBA. NBA playoffs continue to roll on, continue to give us great basketball, great storylines. So, of course, we got to jump right into it here on the show. First up, last night's games. Of course, we're recording this on the morning of Wednesday, May 8th. Celtics taking care of business, man. Game 1, 120-95, getting things kicked off in their series against the Cavaliers. Not much that I really feel like I need to say about the Celtics in this series at this point. They won 68 games, man. Running through the East should be like the bare minimum at this point. We saw them take care of the Miami Heat, pretty quick work. A Miami Heat team that was just outmanned from the jump, even before we knew that they weren't going to have Jimmy Butler. Celtics, of course, lose Porzingis. As I said on this show last week, I didn't really think that it would affect them in this series, maybe more so in the Eastern Conference Finals and beyond. And that definitely showed itself last night. I mean, hell, Jason Tatum shot 7 for 19 from the field, went 0 for 5 from three-point range, and they won the game by 25 points. Says all you need to say about the Boston Celtics, man. Hell of a performance from Jaylen Brown with his 32 points last night. Got another 25-point game from Derek White last night. This Celtics team, they got too many weapons, too many guys, especially for this particular series. A Cleveland Cavaliers team that, while we saw Donovan Mitchell put up 33 points last night, the more that they go on in these different playoff series, you're going to see they just don't have another guy that they can count on to create his own shot. Darius Garland can get other guys involved. Mitchell can help get other guys involved. But when it comes to actually going and creating a shot for yourself, Donovan Mitchell and maybe to a much lesser extent Darius Garland are really the only two guys that Cleveland has that can give you that. And this is not the series for them. I mean, we just saw them have a rock fight for 7 games with Orlando. This is probably going to be over in 4 or 5 against Boston. Again, especially considering that last night Jason Tatum had 19 points on 19 shot attempts, and they still lost by over 20. So, don't think they can make the spread high enough for these games, especially in Boston. So, Celtics take that one. They're going to take the series. We're not going to worry too much about that. And that's really all the Celtics talk that I can stomach at this point. My Lakers are at home. The Celtics are rolling. It's not a good time for me. Just throwing it out there. So, last game from last night, we also saw Oklahoma City take game 1 against Dallas, 117-95. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander looking every bit as much like an MVP candidate as he has been all regular season. Keeping that up, of course, through the first round against New Orleans, and definitely kept that going last night against Dallas. 29 points, 9 rebounds, 9 assists, near triple-double for him. And he, again, showing why he's an MVP candidate, showing why this Oklahoma City team needs to be taken seriously. I, of course, have said to anybody that will listen, I do think the winner of Minnesota and Denver will go on to represent the Western Conference in the NBA Finals. However, I do think that Oklahoma City is much more ready to take on that challenge than what we would probably have given them credit for before the playoffs started. And, everybody's going to talk about how young they are. They even asked, SGA about it at the end of the game last night. And I think the youth thing for them is definitely valid. But I also think they just have a skill level and another gear that they go to across the board with those guys that a lot of teams just can't flip the switch on. We saw it with Dallas last night. They were in that game for a lot of it, but it was always, 5, 7, 9 points. It was never, I can't say never. They had, small leads and, 1-point deficits here and there. But the Oklahoma City team was just always a run away from being able to run away with the game. And so you look at that for this particular series, Dallas is definitely going to be able to make it a fight. Of course, whenever you have Luka Doncic, you have Kyrie Irving. Those guys are going to keep you in these games. But I do think it's going to be a problem for them. They don't have anybody that can really be an SGA stopper on this team. Where meanwhile, you have the Thunder having a bunch of different guys, a bunch of different bodies that they can throw at Luka and at Kyrie. And similar situation as we just talked about with Cleveland. Once you get beyond those two guys for Dallas and Luka and Kyrie, who's supposed to go create a shot for you? You're not relying on Tim Hardaway Jr., who just came back off an injury. PJ Washington has been fine, but he's not going to go get you 20 or 25. I think as much as I would like to see Dallas move on and get you, another Luka Doncic conference finals appearance and continue building on his star power, this might be a situation where you're looking at, in this particular series, Shea really showing why he was an MVP candidate and showing why Oklahoma City is ready to make that jump now versus being a year or two away. So, I hadn't gone on wax making a prediction on this series. I do think Oklahoma City wins. I do think it'll still be a long series. Going into it again, I thought that Luka and Kyrie would probably get a chance to steal one in game one. They looked that way for early parts of that game, but over time, man, Oklahoma City, they just wore them guys down. And, of course, they also are playing great defense across the board right now. Holding that Dallas team to 95 points. Again, they didn't score a ton of points against the Clippers, but I do think, when it's all said and done, Oklahoma City is a young team, but they are definitely ready to make a run right now in these playoffs. And we got to be prepared for them being the other side of that conference finals matchup, the same way that we were ready to project Luka and Kyrie into that conference finals. So I'm going to take OKC. I think I'll take them in 6. Again, Luka and Kyrie can get you a game or two. It's just the guys beyond them compared to the guys behind Shea on Oklahoma City. I think that it's just going to be too much at some point. So, Oklahoma City, I'm predicting that they win that series. It will still be close, but based on what we saw last night, I think it's Shea's time, at least on that side of the bracket. Now, talk about that side of the bracket. Got to go over to Minnesota and Denver. Of course, Minnesota now up 2-0 in that series. And won game 2 just extremely convincingly, 106-80, holding the Denver Nuggets to 80 points. Look, again, I reiterate it here. I picked whoever was going to win this series was going to go to the NBA Finals. Did not know that when I said that Minnesota was going to come out and look the way that they have here through 2 games. You can say it's just 2 games, but missing the fact that game that they held the Nuggets to 80 points, Rudy Gobert was not there. He was there, back in Minnesota for the birth of his first child, which everybody that's outraged about him missing the game, one, probably don't have children, or if you do, you have multiple, so you're thinking beyond that first one. I don't think anybody's trying to miss the birth of their first child. Professional basketball player, rapper, doctor, I don't care who it is. Nobody's trying to miss the birth of their first child. And we saw that also going into that game, they felt like they had did their job. They stole game 1, which, of course, first 2 on the road, you want to take one of them. They had already done that. And as we could see, they had enough firepower to not only stay in that game against Denver, but to take it over. Now, on the Denver side of this, Jamal Murray absolutely should have been suspended for throwing the heating pad, throwing the towel on the court. Not even on just, hey, he shouldn't be doing that. But if you go back and look at where that landed and what was going on at the time, not only was it live basketball being played, I think Karl Anthony Towns was going up for a layup at the time, and you could very visibly see that he comes down or comes very close to stepping on that heating pad. So just from a player safety standpoint, that's something I think definitely warrants a suspension. Now, them being down 2-0, does him not being suspended really matter? Probably not. Minnesota looks pretty damn good in this series, regardless of whether Jamal Murray plays or not. He's been the one that has struggled probably the most out of anybody on Denver's side of this, just because of all the size that Minnesota has to be able to throw at him. And really being able to make him work offensively in a way that, to be quite honest, the Lakers definitely could not do. We didn't have a singular defender to be able to throw on him at a given time like the Minnesota Timberwolves have Jaden McDaniels to be able to rotate on him. Or if Anthony Edwards wants to take that challenge on for different stretches of the game, they have the guys to be able to do that. And, man, Minnesota, like, it might be their time. It might just be Anthony Edwards is 22, but he's ready to take over the league right now. Right now, today. Like, it just might be that time. And I'm definitely excited to see how they go into game 3 and 4 at home, having that crowd behind them, having some expectation now to be able to manage, whereas, before they were obviously looked at as the underdog. Now you're looked at as a pretty heavy favorite, not only to win this series, but if and when you do win this series, pretty heavy favorite to make it out the West, I would think. So, they're absolutely capable of winning the finals, too. They have the go-to star for points in Anthony Edwards. You have the role players and guys around him, Cat, Gobert, Naz Reid, Alexander Walker coming off the bench. Mike Conley has played well this whole postseason. Jaden McDaniels that we mentioned. Slow-mo, Kyle Anderson. They have guys. They've got the 1 through 8 that you need to be able to make a playoff run. Now it's just about them actually finishing it off and, letting the results be the results. So, interested to see what happens in Game 3 because Denver has to win Game 3. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Also, Denver. Love how y'all, last year and even some parts of this year were talking about the Lakers for complaining about the refs, and that shoe gets turned on the other foot. See how you guys start to whine a little bit. So, I'm thinking Minnesota now. Of course, I said this was going to be a 6 or 7 game series. We might not make it to 5, depending on what happens this weekend. So, shout out to Anthony Edwards and the Timberwolves, man. They are definitely handling business and making a believer out of a lot of people that thought that this might not be their time, and I definitely think that it is. So, now on to Knicks and Pacers. Of course, their game 2 is tonight. I think the Pacers had their chance to steal game 1 and didn't. They're probably going to lose tonight. That's just my my analysis of it. Jalen Brunson has been an outright monster this entire postseason. Now 4 straight 40-point games here in the playoffs. Does he make it 5 tonight? Not sure. I don't know that it matters. I do think that Garden crowd is going to be rocking yet again. We've seen it in every single playoff game so far. Now, not saying that the Pacers are completely done in this series. I do think they have an opportunity to steal the game tonight, but I do think they have a better chance playing in front of their home crowd to be able to make some dividends on this. But the problem for them is they do not have that switch to be able to flip defensively. And we see, I think, TNT had the graphic the other night. When they don't score 120 points this playoffs, they lose every one of those games. So this Knicks team, I think, can lock in defensively enough to keep them under that 120. And if they do, it's another win for the Knicks, man. So let's also be honest about this. We're talking about, Oklahoma City and potentially Minnesota playing in a Western Conference Finals. The NBA is going to want Celtics, Knicks in the Eastern Conference Finals. Just whether you think there's some shenanigans that play in that or not, Boston, New York is going to happen in the Eastern Conference Finals, at least in my opinion. Whether they got to roll out some old refs that were betting on games, they got to bring Tim Donaghy back, they got to let Scott Foster ref every game, whatever happens, they're going to make sure that Boston, New York is the Eastern Conference Finals, given the options that you have in the Western Conference Finals. You got a lot of star power, but small markets in the West right now still remaining. Boston and New York are going to be your markets that are going to anchor the rest of your playoffs if you're the NBA. So I do think that's going to be the outcome. I'll take the Knicks in 6 in this one. Pacers are tough, but I just think being so offense heavy, this is not the series for them. So give me the Knicks, not only tonight here in game 2, but I do think they ultimately win the series in 6 games. So, I think that'll do it for us here on today's show, man. We got Knicks-Pacers tonight. You'll get game 2s of Cleveland and Boston, as well as Oklahoma City, Dallas tomorrow. Of course, we don't have a parlay today. The Clippers, man. What were we thinking? what was I thinking? What was I thinking? Relying on anybody from the Clippers to do anything for a bet and parlay, right? So last week, of course, I parlay Luka and Kyrie come through for us. Paul George and James Harden do not. So missed that one. But we'll definitely have more bets here as we go into the remainder of the playoffs. Won't have a parlay for tonight. Honestly, not really sure what the best bets may be for tonight, just given how some of those odds are creeping up for things like Jalen Brunson points and things like that. But if you are betting at home, if you're going to straight bet, I'll throw one out here for you. Isaiah Hartenstein rebounds. No Mitchell Robinson here for the foreseeable future. Isaiah Hartenstein is going to definitely be on the boards in that game. So we'll take that one. No parlays, though, for tonight. So till next time, ladies and gentlemen, this has been Price Check Podcast. I am your host, Josh Price. Check it out.